Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here today. This first panel is entitled God and Other Higher Beings. And while as students and scholars of religion, you are all undoubtedly familiar with many different gods, Vishnu, Jesus, Zeus, I am here today to talk to you about some gods which you may not be as familiar with. These are the great old ones of the Cthulhu Mythos, a pantheon of deities who belong to no recognized religion, but nevertheless have scores of followers worldwide. The invention of early 20th century pulp fiction author Howard Phillips Lovecraft, or H.P. Lovecraft for short, these gods are the subject of a devoted fan base around the world. Fans, I will argue, who not only celebrate the Cthulhu mythos, but create a subjunctive, as-if world based in said fiction. This is to say that such fans create, within certain boundaries, a temporary world that makes sense amidst the confusion and disorder of everyday reality, and which produces pockets of order, joy, and inspiration, even if that order is Lovecraft's bleak notion of cosmicism, a concept which I will elaborate on in a moment. Furthermore, I will show how the Cthulhu Mythos fandom creates a subjunctive world by means of play, in particular via sophisticated jokes, which work simultaneously to create the boundaries of the fandom's subjunctive world of horror, while blurring the boundaries between groups of geeks who bond through popular culture and recognized religious communities. This recognition of the relationship between fandoms and religion is not a wholly new insight, but one that has often been supported on little more than surface parallels between the two groups, with little attention paid to what such groups actually do for their members. It should be made clear here at the outset that the goal of this essay is not to argue that fandoms are religions. Clearly, both fandoms and religions exhibit too many important differences to be identical. Rather, the goal here is to say that both fandoms and religions function in a similar way when examined on the grounds of what they do and how they do it. Following then will be a brief sketch of what the Cthulhu mythos is, what the Cthulhu fandom is, and a short video clip which will illustrate fan behavior, followed by analysis of that clip. So what is the Cthulhu mythos? The Cthulhu mythos is a literary mythology created by H.P. Lovecraft, an early 20th century writer of horror fiction and weird fantasy stories, the majority of which appeared originally in pulp magazines like Weird Tales and Astounding Stories. These stories deal with a group of generally hostile alien gods, the Great Old Ones, who come to Earth and interact with human beings. Cthulhu, who has become the poster god of the mythos as a whole, is the high priest of the Great Old Ones, and first appeared in the short story The Call of Cthulhu, published in 1928. Perhaps the most unique aspect of Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos is that, unlike other literary mythologies, such as Tolkien's Middle-earth, the Cthulhu mythos lacks a solid narrative core. Rather, it is a mythology of parts, with which a given author can either build a story around or apply to another preconceived narrative universe, such as the world of Sherlock Holmes. According to Lovecraft scholar S.T. Joshi, these parts include four primary elements, the first being the fictional New England topography in which Lovecraft set the majority of his stories. Second, a library of imaginary, forbidden, and dangerous books or grimoires is needed. The most famous of these books, which Lovecraft invented, was the ancient and dreaded Necronomicon, said to have been written by the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred. It will be important to keep this book, the Necronomicon, in mind, as we will be returning to it shortly. Third is the pantheon of extraterrestrial gods we have already mentioned, and fourth and finally, a sense of cosmicism is required. This last element refers to a philosophical position of Lovecraft's own invention, which he most fully elaborated on in a letter to Weird Tales editor Farnsworth Wright, in which he wrote, quote, "Now all my tales are based on the fundamental premise that common human laws and interests have no validity or significance in the vast cosmos at large. To achieve the essence of real externality, whether of time or space or dimension, one must forget that such things as organic life, good and evil, love and hate, and all such local attributes of a negligible and temporary race called mankind have any existence at all." End quote. For Lovecraft, humankind is ultimately insignificant within the cosmos at large, the fate of our species of no universal concern. When viewed through this philosophical lens, it quickly becomes apparent that Lovecraft's extraterrestrial gods, despite their desire to wipe humanity off the planet, are not evil in a traditional dualistic sense, but rather merely indifferent to humankind's existence as a whole. When Lovecraft was alive, he actively encouraged other authors to write their own mythos stories using elements he had created. This practice continued after his death and has led to the Cthulhu mythos perpetuating to this day as a living work, which has been elaborated upon by many famous authors, including Robert Bloch, Robert E. Howard, Stephen King, Joyce Carol Oates, and Neil Gaiman, just to name a few. According to Chris Johann Ernst's book, A Cthulhu Mythos, Bibliography and Concordance, in 1999, there were exactly 2,631 short stories, novellas, and novels that comprise the Cthulhu mythos, a number which has no doubt increased during the past 11 years. Early on, Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos stories garnered him a devoted fan base. The earliest fans were those authors, like Howard and Bloch, who were so enthralled with Lovecraft's fictional universe that they sought to become a part of it by furthering its mythology with their own pens. Other fans, like authors August Derleth and Donald Wandry, founded publishing companies like Arkham House, dedicated to keeping Lovecraft's work in print. Beginning in the 1970s, a second generation of mythos fans who had grown up reading the mythos entered the field of literary criticism. They were determined to help promote Lovecraft to the echelon of recognition they felt he deserved as one of America's most important literary talents. Some of these scholars have often gone beyond the realm of mainstream literary criticism and have engaged the mythos with a notably Talmudic fervor, treating the mythos as if they were sacred texts. In 1981, Lovecraft fan and game designer Sandy Peterson created Call of Cthulhu, a tabletop role-playing game set in the world of the Cthulhu mythos. The game quickly rose in popularity and became the second most widely played RPG after the better-known Dungeons & Dragons. Call of Cthulhu helped to bring many new fans into the mythos, and today has remained one of the primary channels for gaining new converts. Today, Lovecraft and the Cthulhu mythos exists not only as an ever-growing body of literature, but also as a variety of board games, video games, card games, toys, music, movies, and more. Bands such as Metallica, Blue Oyster Cult, Black Sabbath, The Darkest of the Hillside Thickets, and others have written songs about Lovecraft and his tales, while TV personalities like Stephen Colbert and Craig Ferguson have been known to drop the occasional Cthulhuvian reference on their shows. Hollywood directors like John Carpenter, Stuart Gordon, and Sam Raimi are acknowledged Cthulhu mythos fans, and directors Guillermo del Toro and James Cameron have recently announced their plans to adapt Lovecraft's 1936 novella At the Mountains of Madness into a 3D theatrical film slated for a 2012 release. While there is probably no way of conclusively determining how many fans of the Cthulhu mythos exist around the world, we can say that there are over 5,998 registered members, myself included, on Yog-Sothoth.com, one of the world's largest online Cthulhu mythos digital communities. Cthulhu mythos fans are, in short then, those individuals who love and celebrate the work of Lovecraft and the mythos which he created. More than that, however, such fandoms not only celebrate the Cthulhu mythos, but as I will now show, also use it to create a subjunctive as-if world. How do they do this? One way is through the means of play, in particular via jokes which work to erect the boundaries of the fandom's subjunctive world of horror while simultaneously creating a sense of order in the universe. To illustrate this, I would like to show the following video. The Necronomicon is a 1 minute and 49-second professionally crafted and humorous video directed by Joseph Nanny and uploaded on YouTube on October 15, 2009. It features two adult gentlemen, Jim and Dan, meeting in a cafe one afternoon. This video is not about the fandom, but rather is an example of the fandom in action. This video was made by fans for free. This is what we, the fans, do.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
No worries.
Good book?
Yeah. You read any good books lately?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Is this the Bible?
No, no, no. Well, it's like the Bible, but different. Way different. It's the Necronomicon. It's an account of the old ones, their history, the means for summoning them. It was written by Abdul al-Hazred, like back in the 1st century AD. You know, people thought he was mad. But if knowing the unknowable is crazy, I don't want to be sane.
It's heavy.
Yeah, with forbidden knowledge.
So, I mean, does it help you be a nicer person or teach you to do good things?
Not exactly. It opens up terrifying vistas of reality.
Only vistas, eh?
Hey, look, Dad, give it a chance. I mean, what do you have to lose? I mean, you'll either go mad from the revelation or be on your knees begging for a new dark age.
To get your copy of the Necronomicon, contact your local chapter of the Esoteric Order of the Old Ones and Cthulhu Cultists. It's free, and it'll change your life.
You know what? I will read it.
All right.